Son los toreros los que se ponen cinta en el pelo, los que se ponen cinta en el pelo. Hello, this is hard. I'm in my living room. My name is MEIRA GOLDBERG, and I am recording my presentation for you today. I'm honored to be with you all virtually, and hope that sometime soon we can be together in person. The gesture that I just did is the subject of my talk today. I call this gesture a pellizco, which means a pinch. And I'm gonna talk to you just extemporaneously right now, and then I can give you some of the historical work I'm doing with this gesture. But first I want to explain to you what it is. So this gesture, the thing I did, the gesture that I'm talking about today is actually kind of a constellation of 3 gestures. So I did this, and then I did this. And this dance step, flamenco dance step, has 3 parts. This thing I call a llamada, or a call. So this is basically what I will use to signal to the musicians that something is going to happen. It's kind of to get their attention. It's kind of to grab a hold of the microphone, if you will, or, you know, kind of let them know that I'm going to grab a hold of the microphone. And then after I've given them this warning, okay, and this is part of that. The thing that I call the pellizco is this, right? And what that is that I'm going up and down at the same time. So it's kind of a stretch. And this is the pellizco, which is the step that I'm specifically going to be talking to you today, but I want to talk to you about it in context. And then the thing that follows after that is this step, which I call a cambio, or a change. It's kind of used to change states. And I'm going to talk to you also about it, how it functions rhythmically. Some people call this step an enganche, which means it hooks, it's a hook. So it hooks one section to another. It's a transition between sections. So flamenco, the rhythm I'm doing is called bulerías, and the rhythm is in counts of 6, measures of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one thing that will drive you nuts about flamencos is that we start counting on 12. Like, I think it's probably, you know, international flamencos, because in Spain people don't really count at all in that way. But anyway, so this, for our flamenco counts, this would be 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my llamada, my call, is always going to come at the top of that measure. So it's going to come on the 12, right? So 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That's on my 12, on the top of the measure. And the thing that I'm calling the pellizco is going to happen on the, what in flamenco counts would be a 4. So 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So if we are in this measure of 6, one way this thing works as a signal is in a rhythmic way. So if we're doing bulerías, my foot is going on every other beat. So 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And on top of that, my hands are going 12, 3, 6, 9. 12, 3, 6, 9. So there's a 2 overlaid with a 3. And each of those ways of accentuating are incipient, are inherent within each measure. So one way that this signal works, so this signal is like a warning. First, I'm going to say, look at me, I'm about to do something. And then I'm going to go, whoa, like that is to give you the it's imminently going to come this change of state to another thing. So one way that this works is by pulling on the rhythm as a hemiola, right? So you'll notice that this is in twos, right? And then I would go from there, I'd probably go back to threes. So I would say, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Ba, 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 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So one way this functions is as a kind of a rhythmic signal. And the other way that this Pellizco functions that is very important is it functions in the context of the sung verse. So this Pellizco, this can be done in a zillion different ways, but the basic physical going up, I always say that this Pellizco is kind of like when you step into the bathtub and you have that, that moment of just pleasure, or you sip of hot chocolate or something like that. Oh, it's like a little shiver of pleasure. And what happens after that is it goes up and then it goes down. So da ga da da di, down, right? And that could be the ole, ba ga da da ole, right? So what's interesting about this gesture and why I'm interested in it is that all flamencos do this pellizco, this gesture, always. So you don't have to be a dancer. You can be a guitarist. You can be a singer. You can be a palmero. You can be an audience member. But part of listening, basically, part of being, part of the stream of music is to do that gesture. And what that gesture does is it structures not only the rhythm, or maybe this signal is a rhythmic signal, right? By pulling on the rhythm into a 2 from a 3, for example, as a signal, right? As this change of state. But the Pellizco coming before that change of state, is kind of like the warning before that. And that functions in a very specific way on top of the flamenco letra. So the thing I sang was, son los toreros los que se ponen cintas en el pelo, okay? The bullfighters are the ones that wear ribbons in their hair. And this is, you could think of this as 4 lines or 2 lines, right? You could say, son los toreros, that could be the first line. And the second one, los que se ponen cintas en el pelo. Now, in flamenco, we have this basic value, which is to rematar el cante, which is to finish off the verse, okay? There are many ways to do that. It can be very complicated, but kind of very simply, right? And so what's happening is I'm going to say, son los toreros, that first line went by completely. And in fact, I could give the singer, it would be better for me to sort of stay out of that, because the singer could have a lot of freedom there to elaborate on that first line. Son los toreros, son los toreros, son los toreros, son los toreros. I could do that if I want to, right? I'm not a singer, but I could do that if I wanted to, or if I were a real singer. But then when I get to the second line, my goal in life is to try to finish with that second line, to somehow acknowledge the ending of that second line. So one of the things that I'm doing with this llamada and then the pellizco is to give everybody the warning that I'm with them. I'm going to finish with you. Okay, so now I'm back here. I have my glasses on, and I am going to share screen and go to the slideshow, and hope this will all work. So the title of my presentation today is Tracing Duende. I already told you what a pellizco is, but I'll tell you what duende is. Duende is kind of the spirit that haunts us. Sometimes people call Duende flamenco's version of soul, and it's a little bit of an ambiguous. The term has a lot of ambiguity in it, which is something that I don't mind at all. But Duende is a good thing for flamencos, and I think I'm using it partly in the sense of being haunted by the past and how I'm viewing flamenco as being haunted by its past and embodying its past. So, you know, methodologically, what I'm after here is to use flamenco dance as a repository or a repertory or an archive of non-canonical, non-white practices. And so I'm interested in trying to use these gestures, which are so ubiquitous that I think they're very old, and I'm using them to try to do history. So just to prove that I wasn't lying about the Pellizco, I'm going to play La Paquera de Jerez in Carlos Saura's 1993 film, Flamenco. And I'm just gonna say that if I'll take you back and do it one more time. But basically, you see them doing the pellizco a number of times in this little passage. So the very, very first thing that happens is you see these people in the background. The guitars start to play. They say ah bria pa 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 pa, and the singers go ah bria on the count of 10, and then they start playing, right? That's one pellizco. And the other pellizco that you will see is that Paquera sings her first line, and when she finishes that first line, it goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And she exhales on the 10, and then on the 12, everybody in the background says ole. So that's the pellizco is the ha, and the llamada, or the going back down, as in the cambio that I showed you before when I was dancing, is on that 12 on the top of the measure of 6. So I'll just play it one more time. That's the pellizco. And there it is, okay? So my contention is that these are codes that are so basic and so structuring of flamenco that that they're really embodied, and there's something that is a cultural embodiment. These are all people, these are all, Roma flamencos from Jerez de la Frontera in southern Spain. I won't go into all of that, but just to say that this is flamenco is a cultural practice for these people, and something they've been brought up with, and they do in their families and their family situation, and so their family setting. And so these gestures are something that, you really just, you do it in the circle of people, and everybody does it, and it's kind of a shared gesture within the flamenco circle. And so that is what is important about it, in my opinion. And I'm just going to I'll try to go quickly, but just to say, this is the verse that I was singing for you. Son los toreros que se ponen cinta en el pelo, right? And this verse is actually what we call a seguidilla. Okay, it's got 4 5-line, 5-syllable lines. And you remember I said that you can treat these two as one line and these two as another line. But I want to just say that the seguidillas are very, very old in Spain. They're certainly, they were old in the 17th century. And the word seguidilla comes from the word seguir, which means to follow. And part of what I'm interested in is the process of following, as well as this verse. Okay, and this verse is what we call an estribillo, which is a refrain. And the work I'm doing right now is I'm trying to take this gesture back in time to medieval Iberia, when there were very unique verse forms that emerged out of, basically, we could just call it the cosmopolitan context. This was a moment when there was a lot of there were many kingdoms which were Muslim on the Iberian Peninsula, and then there were Christian kingdoms, and I'm not going to go into any of that. But just to say that in this kind of bilingual, multilingual, multicultural context, there emerged verse forms which were unique to Al-Andalus, or medieval Iberia, and which contain within them poetic quotation or contrafacta as a generator of form, and those poems worked by bringing the audience in to sing along with this refrain or this estribillo. And just to say that in these verse forms of medieval Iberia, what there are sections that have an introductory section which is freer, and then there is a penultimate section which gives indications in terms of melody and in terms of rhyme that are to the audience, that they're going to come in and sing the refrain along with the soloist who's performing this ballad, let's just call it. And so what I'm curious to know, and what I'm sort of hypothesizing, is that these pellizcos, which function as a penultimate, like they're the signal before, they're the signal that it's about, the ending is about to come in. And of course, with the refrain in Al-Andalus, everybody would be singing it, they would memorize it, it would be easily transportable to another song. And in fact, these are very, very old verses. We know that the seguidillas are very old. And so I'm interested in hypothesizing whether some of this gesture that also structures the verse, or this kind of embodiment of the verse, if you will, is something that that we can use to try to make hypotheses and proposals about medieval Iberian dance. And I'm not going to, well, maybe I will just play this because I can always cut it off later, right? But just to say that this is a song which is very old. It comes from a cancionero or a songbook from around 1500, but it's known that they were collecting older songs. And then, of course, we have a 13th century Muslim writer who is talking about the Moorish dancing girls, Moorish, I'm going to put that in quotes, of the city of Jaén. And so here we have these three Moorish girls from Jaén. And what's interesting about that is that the way the refrain goes, we have this same Pellizco, and then the fall. So going up and then down. So we have Aisha Fati Mai Biden, right? So it goes Aisha Fati Mai Biden, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and goes back down. So I'll play that just to make you happy, and then I will say thank you very much. This is Fahmi Alkai. In this recording, it's called Las Idas y las Vueltas. And I'm just going to say the singers are Arcángel. And thank you very much.